Welcome to Authenticity Unleashed. I'm your host, Pam Rader, and I'm so grateful to be here with you today. I have a really great show for you. I want to start by saying, we all get stuck. We all get stuck from time to time. Sometimes we're spinning our wheels in the mud about a relationship or our finances or about a job. Should I stay or should I go? Should I build a business? Should I quit this business? Oftentimes we're stuck in just personal identity crises. And the one thing that I know about being stuck is that as long as we're looking at just the problem, we're very unlikely to find a solution. There's a pathway to finding a solution when we feel stuck. And I'm going to give you a little general overview of it and then dive into one particular part that I really want to hammer home today. It's going to leave you with some actionable pathways to get unstuck. So the first thing to know is that whenever we're stuck, the culprit is one of three things. So number one, skill. You may be lacking a particular skill. So maybe your business is failing and you blame the economy instead of looking at, okay, maybe I need to learn how to do different kinds of marketing, or I need to learn more about fiscal responsibility, or I need to, learn how to hire and attract the right kind of people. Maybe there's a skill there that you haven't learned. Perhaps you're struggling in a relationship and you realize that your communication skills are lacking, or you don't have the skills to apologize or to listen generously or to even work through what are your values and how do you align with them. There are skills and techniques involved in relationships. There are skills required whenever we're entering any kind of goal setting mission. So if I am going to participate in a triathlon, which God forbid I wouldn't, I only run when people are chasing me. But if I were to do that, I would have to develop the skill of swimming. I might be able to run and I might be able to ride a bike, but I'd have to practice the skill of swimming. Whatever problem we face, wherever we feel stuck, look and ask yourself, is there a skill that I'm missing? An interesting fact is that if you spend 20 hours diving into any particular skill, you read some books, go down the YouTube rabbit hole, actually get hands-on practice at a skill, with 20 hours of practice, you will become pretty proficient at that skill. We're all capable of learning and growing. So a skill is like a good place to start and look. The next place where we get stuck, or the next problem that could be keeping us stuck, is belief systems. And we often have belief systems around what we deserve or don't deserve, around how the world is or isn't. It's a bad place or it's a good place. It's a dangerous place or a safe place. Or we have beliefs about people who have money and people who don't. We have beliefs about people who are addicts and people who are not. And those beliefs can keep us stuck in places we don't want to be. And so the next place to examine is really like, what beliefs do I hold about this situation? What larger beliefs do I hold about the world in this situation? And to really look at, is there a belief that I could let go of? Because mindset can be your greatest help, and it can be your greatest hindrance if you're not checking in with the beliefs that keep you back. But that's not what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about the third thing: character traits. Character traits. So often we say that we have a personality, and I'm just impatient, or I'm stubborn, or I'm willful, or I don't give up, or whatever it is. But oftentimes these traits that we have, they're just things that we haven't really investigated. And we haven't examined them in terms of, are they beneficial to me moving toward my goal? Or are these traits actually hindering me from getting what I want, from getting unstuck in this situation? For instance, perhaps you're impatient and that's causing problems in a relationship. Perhaps you're impulsive and that's actually causing you problems in your business. Perhaps you have a trait of having a hot temper or the opposite of avoiding conflict, and both things don't help you in your leadership role. So we have to look at the real, like, what is the issue? Where am I stuck? And then I like to start with traits because I always look there first. Like, what is it in me that has to shift and change for me to get unstuck? Now, I want to share with you a story uh, about my son. My son, Nick, last night, I was so blessed and privileged to be able to attend the 2-year celebration of his sobriety at his home meeting in New Westminster. There was like well over 100 people there. It was so celebratory. I got to watch my son be a pillar of his community and a source of hope for others, and to really see him thriving and shining and celebrating alongside his incredible girlfriend who was there taking her 3-year cake. And I know from sharing stories with her mother and her family that, we went through a lot of similar things. There were some really, really dark times through those kids' addictions, and it went on a long, long time. And both families really prepared themselves to lose children. And yet there they were last night, standing up in front of all of these people as beacons of hope, as lighthouses for others, and encouraging others to have hope. Now, I'll briefly touch on this. Part of their addiction, beyond the disease, was the belief that they couldn't get better, and that there was no point, that life was too hard. There were beliefs around that. And before they went to treatment, one of many times for both of them, they lacked the skills to live a sober life. But once they'd been in treatment and they had the skills and they could see other people that had succeeded, that challenged their beliefs that it couldn't be done, then it came down to traits, character traits. Now, I'm going to tell you about a trait that my son had throughout his life and how it didn't serve him. And then it really did. When he was little, he was so cute. He would never give up. He was so persistent and so tenacious. And when he was little, that was cute. He would come to me and say, "Mom, can we go to the park?" And I'd say, "Soon." I was a single mom back then. I always had a million things to do, and going to the park was not high on my list of priorities. And he would come back and say, "When are we going to the park?" And I'd say, "Later on." And then he would come back and say, "Is it past soon? And is it later on yet?" And he was so persistent, and he would always get me to go, and we went to the park. And then as he got into school, he started being a little more stubborn. He wouldn't give up being right about whatever it is he needed to be right about. And he wouldn't give up in terms of he wouldn't back down. And he started getting in trouble in school with teachers and pushing and shoving with friends and having personality conflicts with coaches because he was stubborn, this trait of stubbornness he wouldn't give up. Now, as he got into his teenage years, this trait sort of worsened in terms of he was right about the path he wanted to take. He was being stubborn about it. He wouldn't hear anyone else's opinion. And that led him down some really dark paths. He could figure it out himself. He was going to be all right. And he started getting into bigger problems where he's actually in fights for his life and never backing down and putting himself into situations that are dangerous and never giving up. Now, Nick's addiction went on for like 15 years. It was a long time. And you can imagine all of the things that happened during that time. But during his addiction, he also never gave up trying to get better. He never gave up trying to gain the skills to get better. So he kept going to treatment and recovery houses. And that kid went 29 times. He had lost all belief in himself. He had the skills, but this trait of being so stubborn actually served him in terms of he kept going to treatment. He never gave up fully. He didn't succumb to, it's just not going to happen for me. He kept going and kept going. And then one time when he was ready, it worked. He was just ready. And that involved changing another trait, which was that stubbornness. So never giving up had to be separated from stubbornness. Stubbornness is just, I'm going to do it my way, right? But never giving up is, I'm going to keep trying. And that might involve some surrender. And so Nick had to make that distinction that I'm going to keep trying. I'm going to keep being tenacious about my recovery, but I'm going to relinquish this stubbornness and actually practice surrender. And when he altered that trait in himself and looked to people that he trusted for guidance, and when he couldn't trust himself, asked others for guidance that had his best interests at heart, that were helping him work his recovery, his entire life transformed. So he had the skill. And it was over and over again that he had tried to apply the skills, but without addressing the trait in him, he wouldn't be where he is today. Now, along the same lines, I had the trait of trying to control things, of trying to manage his life, trying to rescue him, trying to take responsibility for all of the fiascos that happened along the way and how that looked for me and what it meant about me as a mom. And for me to heal, I had to get some skills. I had to learn the skills of communicating better. I had to learn the skills of recovery as a mom, as a family member of someone who loves an addict. I also had to start believing, to let go of the belief that I'm responsible for the outcome of another human being, and adopt the belief that I'm responsible for my happiness and my results only. That's it. So I changed that belief. But the trait that I had to give up was controlling everything, trying to be the manager of everyone's emotions in life. And as I started to recognize that, I could practice patience. I could practice surrender. I could practice taking a deep breath and not fixing something. So it was really ultimately me looking at the traits that I was exhibiting that weren't working for me that led me to more freedom. And it was Nick looking at the traits that he was exhibiting that weren't serving him that led him to living a beautiful life. And now, as I said, he's a pillar in his community. People are looking up to him. He becomes this lighthouse for others. But I think it's valuable to break this down and say, hey, if I have all the skills and it's not working, what are my belief systems? Well, if I believe it's possible and it's still not working, then guess what? The buck stops here. It becomes about me. I have to examine my traits. And you want to look at a person who's been successful where I haven't been successful. What traits do they have that I need to start to develop in myself to get unstuck? My son looked to his mentor, Ronnie. What traits does he have? Yeah, he was tenacious too, but he's humble and he knew how to surrender. And he tried to help other people. He had a massive heart for service. And so my son is slowly adopting all of those kinds of traits that he's seen work for others. And I think that's something that gets missed a lot. We look at what are the skills I need, and maybe I got to look at the mindset, but we don't always say, what traits do I have that I need to work on? So I'm going to ask you this. In an area where you have felt stuck or stagnant, nothing's moving, maybe have a look. Skills, yeah. Beliefs, yeah. But ask yourself this. What traits do I have that are keeping me stuck? And what traits do I need to work on and develop in myself to get me where I want to go? I think this is such a beautiful pathway and a great way that we can examine where we're stuck every single time we get stuck in a way that's going to be empowering, move us forward, and continue to expand our lives. That's what I've got for you today. If you like this show, I please ask you that you would share it. My goal is to empower human beings to live their most authentic lives and to give tools that make a difference in people's lives in a way that is actionable, meaningful to them, that's going to improve relationships. So if this show helps you in any way, if you would share it, it would be amazing to me. If you would rate the show, I would be so appreciative. And if you want more information on any of the things that I offer, check out shiftlabs.ca, pamrader.com. We've got a whole bunch of free programs, a lot of great information that you can take advantage of. And until next time.